We know that our ancestors did not possess construction equipment akin to what we have today, and among the excavations of ancient ruins, archaeologists have scarcely found remnants of machines or instruments that could have been used to raise gigantic walls or to dig deep labyrinths. Yet by some miraculous means, these monumental edifices appeared on Earth. It would be absurd to claim that they were constructed solely with manual tools. From mysterious underwater megaliths to colossal stone giants erected at the edge of the world. Today, in our hour-long episode, we have gathered several of our segments into one and will recount incredible prehistoric megastructures and enigmatic locations. No one to date has been able to explain how and by whom such incredible objects could have been built. I wish you the most enjoyable viewing experience.
Imagine a group of rural inhabitants deciding to verify an old tradition that had been whispered about for nearly several generations. The legends insisted that under a pond in China's Zhejiang province lay enormous caves carved out of solid rock. Hardly anyone took this tale seriously until one local resident rented a powerful pump and began draining the water. It took more than 2 weeks for the pond's water level to drop enough for the bottom to be exposed to the astonished onlookers. They found man-made tunnels with carefully leveled walls and ceilings descending to a depth of about 30 meters. Later, it turned out that there were at least 3 dozens of such caves in the area, all comparable in their level of craftsmanship. The main mystery is what happened to the tons of extracted stone. With such depth, we are talking about a colossal volume. Some researchers suggest that the stone could have been used to build walls or palace complexes in ancient times, but there is no concrete proof. Even more perplexing is the purpose of these caves. Perhaps they were ancient grain storage sites or places for secret gatherings. Another theory is that they could have served as reservoirs for water in times of drought. And there are those who believe the caves formed a sacred complex where people studied the starry sky, taking advantage of the natural coolness and the absence of external light. With every new study, this complex only multiplies the questions. What is its exact chronology? Whose hands built such a monumental structure? And why are there no mentions of this grand labor anywhere around? Near the legendary pyramids of Giza, researchers uncovered a most unusual sight. In a mountain range, they discovered gigantic stone boxes carved from solid pieces of Aswan granite. Each weighs more than 100 tons, and their lids fit so precisely that not even a thin sheet of paper can slip between them. What is even more astonishing is that the local hieroglyphs, hastily scratched onto the granite, look as though they were added much later. This has fueled hypotheses suggesting that these sarcophagi might be much older than the ancient Egyptian civilization itself, and that the Egyptians later adopted them for their own use. A bold theory even proposes an extraterrestrial origin for these granite boxes, given the terrifyingly advanced level of technology needed to process such massive blocks. Some Egyptologists, however, lean toward more conventional explanations. Perhaps these boxes were intended for burying sacred Ibis bulls or for other cult-related purposes involving relics. But why then is there no detailed account of how such colossal objects were made? The questions remain open, and the mystery of Saqqara still awaits a complete solution. Picture a structure that looks like an ancient labyrinth with vaults and corridors, where every inch of stone seems meticulously shaped. There is no reliable information about its exact location or historical affiliation. Some suggest that it might be an elaborate hoax or a modern replica, while others believe it served as a secret sanctuary or even an engineering project for collecting moisture. The intricacy of the wall finishing suggests the use of highly advanced tools or forgotten techniques not noted in records of ancient craftsmanship. Certain photographs and sketches exist, passed around in small circles, yet they only spark more debate. Some people are convinced that if the structure truly exists, it may have been built by a now vanished civilization. It is difficult to believe such a masterpiece could simply disappear from history, leaving behind neither the name of its architect nor a single myth referencing it. Only fragmentary guesses and conjectures remain, from wells for spiritual purification to treasure vaults. One wonders if archaeologists might someday stumble upon this enigma, and then the world would learn the truth about the mysterious edifice. On the tiny island of Pohnpei, part of the Federated States of Micronesia, lies the ancient city of Nan Madol, a sprawling marvel built on artificial islets. The city is split by canals, giving it the appearance of a submerged labyrinth. Even now, these ruins remain largely unsolved. Massive stone columns used for buildings and walls sometimes weigh several tons each. This leads one to ask, how did ancient people who lacked the wheel and metal machinery manage to transport such blocks? According to local lore, magic or mythical birds that carried the stones aided in the construction. The most prevalent hypothesis suggests Nan Madol was the political and religious center of the Sotalor dynasty, where the rulers administered justice and kept the populace in check. Yet the ruins seem also to retain memories of a more enigmatic chapter in the island's history. Some even connect these structures with the lost continent of Mu. Scientists also note the special layout of the canals. These may have served not only as routes for canoes, but also for defensive strategies, managing water flow, and possibly religious rites devoted to water spirits. Still, these remain theories only, as no precise written sources have survived. In the heart of India's Rajasthan state lies one of the most mesmerizing examples of ancient engineering. A grand stepwell built many centuries ago. Its walls intertwine in an extremely complex geometric pattern of symmetrical steps descending deep into the ground. The official stance is that such wells were vital for collecting water in an arid climate, where every single rainfall was as precious as gold. Yet even seasoned scholars often admit to feeling awe as they descend these endless staircases. It is like finding oneself inside a giant chessboard fashioned according to some unknown architectural canon. Certain local legends hold that such wells were not merely utilitarian, but also used for ritual worship of the gods of water and the underworld. Another theory points to potential astronomical connections. The sunlight beaming into the well can create whimsical shadows and markings on the steps at particular times of the year, forming a sort of calendar. So was the stepwell solely a reservoir, or is it a multifaceted, sophisticated complex? The answers are lost in the depths of time, while the splendid masonry continues to challenge our understanding. Not far from the former capital of the Inca Empire, Cusco, stand the impressive stone walls of Sacsayhuamán. Up close, you might begin to doubt the accepted historical timeline. After all, gigantic blocks weighing over 100 tons are arranged so perfectly that you cannot even slip a thin needle between them. Their complicated polygonal shapes form an impeccable mosaic without any mortar. According to some reports, major state and religious ceremonies of the Incas were conducted here, and supplies of food and arms were stored as well. Spanish conquistadors, marveling at the fortress's might, insisted it must have been crafted by supernatural forces. Yet more pragmatic versions suggest that the Incas used special gravel sand mixes and a relatively soft stone that hardened over time. There is also evidence that sections of the wall were heated and then cooled to ensure a snug fit. Intriguingly, from the bottom to the top of a block, one can spot nearly imperceptible protrusions and recesses that help the stones lock together. All this was achieved without modern cranes or power tools. Perhaps such methods were the result of centuries of experimentation passed down through generations. Amid Germany's green fields, one can find an almost imperceptible circular enclosure dating back roughly 7,000 years. Known as the Goseck Circle, it comprises earthen embankments and wooden palisades with openings perfectly aligned to sunrise and sunset on the winter and summer solstices. Some experts regard it as the oldest solar observatory, indicating that people of that era possessed a profound understanding of the movements of celestial bodies. However, there are also grim discoveries: bones bearing cut marks, definite signs of human sacrifice and evidence of bonfires that may have been part of certain rituals. Interestingly, similar circular structures exist elsewhere in Europe, but Goseck is distinctive for its well-preserved condition and precise astronomical alignment. It may have hosted an entire ceremonial complex, from solar observations to offerings for fertility gods. Curiosity about Goseck continues to grow, and each new find offers the prospect of lifting the veil of mystery that cloaks our ancestors and their worldview. At an altitude of around 8,000 feet above sea level in Ethiopia stands a unique complex of 11 churches apparently extracted from the very heart of the rock. Instead of being built, each church was carved top to bottom, extending down some 40 or even 50 feet. Legends claim that alongside human labor, angels contributed to this nearly impossible task, completing it within a single night. Modern experts, of course, see more than mere myth here. Possibly, King Lalibela commanded huge resources and summoned artisans from all over the land and even beyond its borders. Historical records indicate that Ethiopia during that period maintained close ties with the Middle East, sharing knowledge of crafts and architecture. What is remarkable is that ancient frescoes, carved columns, and entire galleries remain intact inside each church. The channels connecting the churches feature a drainage system and artificial ponds for safely collecting rainwater. And all of this is masterfully hewn in a single rock formation. Pilgrims still travel here, believing the site to be sacred and miraculous. Peru is a treasure trove of astonishing ancient wonders, and the Moray terraces only bolster that reputation. Imagine circle after circle spiraling downward into the earth, forming something like a gigantic funnel. The temperature difference between the top and bottom terraces can be quite pronounced, creating diverse climate conditions at each level. Many believe that the Incas used this variation to cultivate more resilient crop varieties, as the higher terraces are cooler while the lower ones are warmer and more humid. Excavations have revealed layers of soil from various regions, reinforcing the idea that they experimented with growing all sorts of plants here, from legumes to exotic fruits. Some scholars theorize that Moray also functioned as a training ground for future farmers, where they tested innovative irrigation methods and accounted for seasonal wind and sunlight patterns. In this way, the Inca civilization demonstrated a more advanced knowledge of agronomy than is commonly assumed. The Moray terraces stand as living proof of just how ingeniously the Incas shaped the landscape to serve their needs. Asuka is a peaceful Japanese village steeped in history, from its ancient temples to its intriguing stone artifacts. The best known among them is Masuda no Iwafune, or the Stone Ship. This massive monolith weighing hundreds of tons rises from the earth with a striking rectangular shape featuring cutouts and indentations. Scientists are unable to provide a conclusive explanation for why this rock takes such a form. Buddhism arrived in the area later, and the ship is clearly older by several centuries. Some propose it was part of a large burial complex or an astronomical device indicating particular stars during the equinoxes. The local tales are equally vivid. Some claim that Masuda no Iwafune houses the soul of a giant who once roamed these lands. Others say that under specific lunar phases, extra symbols appear on the surface of the monolith, invisible at other times. Verifying such stories is difficult, but the myths persist, drawing sightseers and researchers from around the globe. On the island of Java, amid lush rice fields, stands the colossal Buddhist monument Borobudur, an enduring source of Indonesian pride. Its story came to a halt shortly after its construction. In antiquity, the temple was suddenly abandoned, left to be enveloped by jungle growth and volcanic ash. Archaeologists continue to debate why this happened. Volcanic eruptions, shifting religious practices, epidemics. These are all floated as possible explanations. The temple itself, built in the form of a massive mandala, is adorned with thousands of bas reliefs and hundreds of Buddha statues. Its upper tiers hold hollow stupas concealing statues within. Pilgrims are believed to have ascended these terraces in a meditative journey, each level symbolizing another phase of cleansing the mind. Intriguingly, during restoration work, an unfinished or sealed Buddha sculpture was discovered in the central stupa, implying that construction ceased abruptly. Another detail: the lower tier holds buried bas-reliefs completely covered by earth and stone. Perhaps they were concealed for fear of destruction or deemed too sacred for the public eye. In the high plateaus of Bolivia, near the ancient city of Tiwanaku, sits the puzzling site of Pumapunku. Some of the stone blocks here are so massive that transporting them from the quarry, often located dozens of kilometers away, would seem impossible without modern equipment. Furthermore, many of the stones are composed of special rock types found at great distances from the site. The famed H-shaped blocks inspire both wonder and disbelief. They interlock like building blocks, creating smooth walls with precision seams. The angles of the cutouts are so exact that it seems a laser must have been at work, rather than simple manual tools. Another fascinating detail: some slabs contain magnetic spots, prompting speculation that heat and specific minerals were used in a technological process. Ethnographers suggest Pumapunku may have been a sacred center tied to the cosmological views of local peoples, as the layout aligns with the cardinal directions and the equinoxes. But when and why was the place deserted, thus relinquishing the fruit of such extraordinary labors? A clear answer remains elusive, and Pumapunku continues to fuel outlandish legends of super civilizations. In the Syrian region, where the sanctuary of Aara once stood, archaeologists encountered footprints far larger than a human foot. The stone floor at the temple entrance appears to bear the imprint of giant steps. Some believe this to be a symbolic depiction of a deity entering sacred ground, while others see it as proof of legends about giants that once roamed these lands. Inside the temple, researchers found an image of the goddess Ishtar, but experts disagree as to whether these footprints are linked to her. It could be that the local people imagined the gods in a different form, or that they arrived from distant lands in both literal and figurative senses. Today, the temple has been severely damaged by warfare, and access is limited. Yet what historians do know hints at a remarkable culture where Mesopotamian and local Syrian traditions converged. The giant footprints are merely one piece of the puzzle, offering a glimpse of a world in which reality and myth intermingled so thoroughly that distinguishing between them becomes nearly impossible. It often seems that all ancient civilizations, from the Maya to the Babylonians, shared an intense fascination with the sky. They aligned temples with the sun and moon, etched star maps into stone, built watchtowers, and created calendar systems. And it was not merely about pinpointing planting and harvest times. Different societies believed the stars and planets shaped human destinies, guided the path to the deities, or were themselves divine. In Egypt, pyramids were positioned to mirror Orion's belt. In Mesopotamia, people compiled the earliest rudimentary astronomical charts. And among the Incas, the dark patches of the Milky Way took on sacred significance. As more evidence of this emerges, we see ever more clearly that a profound yearning for the stars was deeply woven into ancient life. Observations of the heavens influenced everything from religious festivals to political choices. Indeed, that universal captivation with the cosmos may well have spurred the magnificent architectural marvels we still see today. An astonishing find for divers has been the monumental terraces off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island. Beneath the waves, one can discern neat, stepped platforms as though carved from a single enormous block. Divers who venture there often compare these shapes to the remnants of an ancient metropolis swallowed by the sea long ago. But geologists disagree. Many insist that Yonaguni is a natural geological formation, the product of slow-moving geological forces. Ocean currents and earthquakes could have created level stone layers that partially resemble man-made terraces. Yet certain niches and holes appear so exact that human intervention seems the only plausible explanation. Occasionally, stone tools or pottery shards surface on the nearby seabed, though there is no absolute proof they relate to any city ruins. Thus, the Yonaguni enigma remains unsolved, captivating underwater archaeology enthusiasts everywhere. Perhaps a vanished civilization really does lurk beneath the Pacific, one that might be linked to the Jomon culture or even more ancient peoples. On one of the world's most remote patches of land, Easter Island or Rapanui, stand the celebrated Moai, stern colossi with oversized heads and, in many cases, unusually elongated ears. There are about 1,000 of them, arrayed around the island's coastline. Some remain unfinished in quarries, as though those who shaped them suddenly departed, never to return. It is astonishing how finely wrought these statues are, given that the island's inhabitants did not possess metal tools or abrasive implements. Research indicates that the Rapanui likely used stone chisels fashioned from denser rock. Yet the true riddle is how they managed to transport these huge figures to different island locations with no technology resembling our own. Local lore contends that the Moai walked on their own, propelled by the ancestral spirit's power. Some modern researchers speculate that the statues could have been rocked or walked with ropes inch by inch. Still, each explanation raises new questions. In addition, the social and historical context cannot be ignored. Overpopulation, deforestation, epidemics, and internal conflicts likely contributed to the decline of the society that produced such colossal art. We are left to marvel at the strength of will and faith that enabled Rapanui's people to leave behind so monumental a legacy.
Perhaps we do not know everything, otherwise how did the mystical pyramids of the Egyptians and the Mayans come into being? The majestic classical temples and the colossal architectural marvels that are several thousand years old? Now, I propose that we delve deeper into one astonishing megastructure known as Baalbek.
In the northeast of Lebanon, 65 kilometers northeast of Beirut, at an elevation of 1,130 meters above sea level, there is a monumental complex called Baalbek. There is another name, Heliopolis, which is connected to the ancient Egyptian cult of the sun god Aten. The ancient ruins of Baalbek can serve as the most convincing evidence of the existence of an advanced ancient civilization that is not reflected in our history textbooks. Baalbek is located atop a sacred hill in the fertile Bekaa Valley, and access there is not so simple today. This massive structure cannot be explained by traditional archaeology and architecture methods. It is made of huge megalithic stones, specifically carved stone blocks of enormous size, each weighing over 1,000 tons. The most interesting thing is its history. The complex of stone monoliths was erected long before the Romans conquered this territory and built their monumental Temple of Jupiter here. It was even before the Phoenicians constructed the temple of the god Baal. Baalbek is clearly the oldest and largest structure made of stone blocks ever discovered in the world. The main part of Baalbek's known history pertains to the period of Roman activity. The Temple of Jupiter was one of the largest in the Roman Empire and still stands as a testament to the power and grandeur of Roman architecture. However, the temple rests on a much older foundation. Beneath the Roman construction lies a series of enormous megalithic blocks, known in architecture as trilithons. They form part of the support for the temple complex. Number 1, each of these trilithons measures about 20 meters in length, over 4 meters in height, and 3.5 meters in thickness, weighing an average of about 900 metric tons, equivalent to the volume of 900 cubic meters of water. These are the largest stones ever assembled in a structure in human history. They were quarried, lifted, moved, and laid in the building's foundation. To understand this in scale, just imagine that each stone weighs roughly 36 times more than the blocks in the Stonehenge structure, and about 10 times more than the heaviest stones used in the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Despite their enormous size, these stones were somehow transported from a quarry located more than half a mile away and lifted to a height of 9 meters to form part of the complex's foundation. Later, the Roman Temple of Jupiter was built on this foundation. The precision with which these stones were cut and aligned is astonishing. They are fitted together almost seamlessly, with such narrow gaps that not even a sheet of paper can slip through. Unlike typical Roman construction, which showcased the grandeur of visible structures, the trilithons were embedded in the foundation and hidden from view. It seems they were laid primarily for structural purposes. Why would a civilization undertake such massive efforts to move and place these enormous stones if they did not intend to display them? Who needed such a sturdy construction to base themselves on for millennia? There are no historical documents from the Romans that would tell us how this architectural feat was accomplished, but historians know how meticulously the Romans documented almost every major construction project. It is interesting why there is not a single report in their chronicles about the movement of these huge stones, or a description of how they were incorporated into the foundation of the Temple of Jupiter. Moreover, the difference in construction technologies is striking. The skillfully processed megalithic foundation stones are much more advanced than the primitive stone masonry of Roman structures. This indicates that the construction went through several phases. In the early stages, it demonstrates higher technological standards. Additionally, according to historians, the largest Roman cranes could lift a load of up to 60 metric tons. It is extremely unlikely that they moved stones weighing 900 tons and more. Furthermore, the Romans used the method of screw drilling to be able to lift stones with their cranes. However, no drill marks were found on the trilithons. If no known Roman engineering technique matches the method of constructing the massive foundation, who then created the original base of Baalbek? Erosion marks from wind and sand are clearly visible on the trilithons, which are not present in the Roman construction. This suggests that they existed thousands of years before the Romans. Researcher Graham Hancock proposed the theory that these trilithons might be about 12,000 years old, and that the foundation appeared 10,000 years before the Roman construction. This is not just conjecture. There is archaeological evidence that traces of permanent human settlements at this site date back to around 9000 BCE. Whoever built these structures, they are entirely unknown to modern history and do not appear in any historical records. Just look at an individual megalithic block. One of these gigantic stones weighs about 800 tons. Compare its size with the nearby tourists. Next to it is the southern megalithic wall, where many such blocks with polished surfaces are located. Observe the perfect fit between them. Some connections are even angled, making the megalithic wall even more impressive and tight. Clearly, this work was done by a much more advanced civilization than the Romans, Greeks, or Phoenicians. Even a child can see the clear difference between the excellent megalithic construction in the foundation and the looser Roman work on the surface. If we take a closer look at the processing of the gigantic stone blocks, we see strange parallel scratches. They are identical in different parts of the complex. These scratches extend almost 3 meters in length and are perfectly parallel. This means they could not have been made by primitive tools. Moreover, the marks resemble traces of machine processing. If you have watched our previous episodes, you have probably noticed that the traces are similar to those left on other prehistoric megalithic objects. For example, the Yangshan Quarry in China also contains gigantic megalithic blocks weighing up to 16,000 tons. The walls of this quarry have exactly the same tool marks as those formed on the massive stones in Baalbek. Another example, in the ancient city of Petra in Jordan, tool marks very similar to the scratches on Yangshan blocks have also been found. These marks were created thousands of years before the Nabatean kingdom established the city in the 4th century BCE. Surprisingly, these even markings show a striking resemblance to modern stone-cutting machinery techniques. Look at the stripes created by modern mining equipment. How can ancient processing methods be so similar to modern technologies? Does this mean that the prehistoric civilization that built all these gigantic megalithic objects possessed advanced knowledge that we still use today? If you consider the joints, you will see that along the entire boundary of the block connections, the gap is reduced to none. The thickness of this miniature line is less than 1/3 of a millimeter. It is unknown what tool or machine created such a tight contact, but fitting such a precise and thin line with primitive tools is unimaginable. The edges of the blocks have a chamfer, a beveled edge, and the shape of the chamfer on both connected blocks is identical. The faces were processed with almost jeweler-like precision, and some areas were even polished. The quality and accuracy of the work are evident in this groove, which is precise to a fraction of a millimeter. Look at the entire gigantic megalithic wall made of massive 800-ton blocks. Judging by the darker shade of the surface, it is obvious that they are much older than the Roman construction. And again, the wonderful precision in fitting the blocks is impressive. In some places, the joints are so tight that they are barely visible. Directly next to the Temple of Jupiter is the Temple of Bacchus. Again, we can see gigantic stone blocks in its foundation. Stones weighing up to 800 tons are fitted together with absolute perfection, where vertical and horizontal gaps cannot accommodate even a razor blade. If you're not right in front of the structure, you probably won't even notice the connections. But the gigantic stone blocks are not the only prehistoric ruins in Baalbek. If you visit the temples of Baalbek, the first thing that will catch your attention is likely the large columns, especially those that adorn the Temple of Jupiter. These are the largest stone columns in the history of classical architecture. However, these massive 20-meter columns are not prehistoric. They were made by the Romans and built from limestone quarried nearby. They were not carved entirely, but were made from sections, each called a drum. They were carefully fitted together to form a seamless column. Although the exact weight of each drum may vary, it has been estimated that an individual drum weighed approximately 60 metric tons. This corresponds to the maximum weight that the Romans could lift using their cranes. However, archaeologists were stunned when they discovered much older columns, most of which were broken. The reason for the astonishment was that unlike the Roman columns, they were made not from locally quarried limestone, but from pink granite, a much harder material. Moreover, they were not assembled from connected drums, but were a single construction. 200 pink granite columns were quarried in Aswan, Egypt, more than 1,000 kilometers from Baalbek. They came from the same quarry that supplied the famous pink granite blocks used in the construction of the royal tomb of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Transporting heavy granite monoliths to Giza, each weighing up to 80 tons, is an incredible task. But in reality, transporting similar multi-ton granite monoliths to Baalbek posed an even bigger problem. They were not simply floated down the Nile River across relatively flat lands. They had to be transported through the Lebanese mountains, which average heights of about 2,500 meters. The difficulty of transporting these colossal stone columns through mountainous terrain seems almost insurmountable. The question arises, how and why did ancient builders make such extreme efforts to deliver these columns to Baalbek? But that's not even the most impressive part of the story of the pink granite columns. We know that granite is one of the hardest materials on Earth, and the only way to shape it is by using tools with diamond tips. However, it is reliably known that such tools were not used until the late 19th century. Moreover, the columns were polished to an incredibly smooth and perfectly round surface, with the transition between curved and flat surfaces being astonishingly precise. It is highly unlikely that such a level of grinding could have been achieved with only hand tools. Even the most skilled sculptor would likely have made slight errors, and we would find indentations or irregularities on at least one of the fragments. But after thousands of years, there are no visible defects left. The protruding edges are still sharp, and the polished surface is incredibly smooth. This convincingly proves that ancient processing technology was as close to modern as possible. As we mentioned earlier, most of the pink granite columns turned out to be broken into pieces and were found along with numerous other fragments. How did the less durable limestone withstand? while granite was shattered into pieces as if a fierce cataclysm occurred on this site. What force could have split monolithic granite into small parts? If we study the scattered stone ruins around the perimeter, we find that many of them have strange patterns, somewhat resembling traces of modern stone-cutting machines. And our today's documentary episode on top facts about the megalithic structures of Baalbek would be incomplete if we did not tell you about another discovery that not only shocks, but changes the paradigm accepted by the scientific community, a set of ideas and concepts about ancient history. The limestone quarry of Baalbek is located about 1.5 kilometers from the main temple complex. Most of the gigantic stone blocks were quarried there. However, the quarry still contains unfinished monoliths, which are even more interesting as they are larger than the foundation stones. One of the earliest and most famous discoveries in the Baalbek quarry is the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. This monolith, named after a local legend, is approximately 20 meters long, 4 meters high, and equally wide, weighing over 1,200 tons. The stone lies at a raised angle, and the lower part of its base is still attached to the quarry's rock face, as if it was ready to be freed and transported to its destination. The enormous size raises questions about how ancient builders intended to transport it. Directly beneath the stone block, we again see strange grooved marks, similar to those on other megalithic stones. Many consider them to be traces of machine processing. In Jungfrau Park in the Interlaken region of Switzerland, there is an intriguing installation, a visual model demonstrating the number of modern cranes required to lift the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. Even if we assume that a prehistoric civilization had the same technology as we do today, there would still not be enough free space at this location to accommodate all these cranes. And even if they lifted the block, how would they transport it to the temple? Initially, a large part of the monolith was buried underground, but after a prolonged excavation process, an even more shocking discovery was made. It turned out that next to the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, directly beneath it, there is an even larger monolith, weighing 1,650 tons. It became known as the Forgotten Stone, and to this day, it is the largest stone block ever quarried in the world. In this aerial photograph, you can compare the Forgotten Stone with the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. The size difference is significant. Considering that the stone block was discovered only 10 years ago, who knows how deep the quarry is and what will be found there in the future? What other giant prehistoric megaliths remain buried underground? The Baalbek Quarry is not only a place for finding massive monoliths, it also contains caves, smaller processed blocks, and a number of mysterious structures. For example, vertically standing monoliths, which were named the Witnesses. These stones differ from horizontally cut blocks in that they stand vertically, almost like sentinels guarding the quarry. The name implies that they served as markers or signposts, possibly indicating the significance of the quarry or the completion of certain stages of extraction. The purpose of these monoliths is still under discussion. Some suggest that they could have been part of an ancient marker system similar to other stones placed around the world, such as those found in Stonehenge or the Carnac stones in France. Some researchers propose that the Witnesses might have had a ritual significance or marked important alignments of celestial objects, as ancient builders often incorporated astronomical features into their monuments. A lesser-known location is another nearby quarry that has barely been excavated. There is another gigantic stone monolith there, known as the Southern Stone. The Southern Stone exceeds the Stone of the Pregnant Woman in size, with an estimated weight of 1,300 tons. The upper part of the monolith was likely visible even during Roman times, and for this reason, numerous indentations can be seen on its surface. Since the Romans could not move and use this gigantic monolith, they simply carved pieces from it for their constructions. Many believe that this quarry is even larger than the previous one. It just remains largely unexplored. To this day, it remains unexcavated, and construction and other debris are constantly dumped there. Who knows what other discoveries are buried beneath it? In conclusion, The megalithic structure in Baalbek remains one of the most impressive evidences of the existence of an advanced prehistoric civilization that possessed advanced technologies. Their methods of material processing and construction far surpassed any of the most advanced known ancient civilizations. The stones and quarry of Baalbek continue to fascinate and puzzle not only tourists but also scientific communities around the world. Whether viewed through the lens of myth, speculative history, or scientific research, the material evidence and fragmented information from historical and religious sources create a foundation for humanity's enduring curiosity. We all want to look behind the curtain of history and understand our ancient past, and along with that, solve the mystery of the inexplicable achievements of prehistoric civilizations.
If you have ever wondered what was built in the world prior to the Great Pyramids, that is to your credit. For in reality, the history of humankind is far more substantial than even the thickest textbooks. I will say more. Across the globe, there remains a vast multitude of grandiose structures created not only before the zenith of Egyptian civilization, but even before the very universal flood. We will journey to present-day Egypt to lift the veil on those Old Testament mysteries. The Great Pyramid in Giza, a masterpiece of architecture and engineering, remains one of the most remarkable achievements in human history, symbolizing a level of paradoxical precision and sophistication. This monument holds secrets of technologies that we are only beginning to uncover. As soon as we approach the pyramid, we start noticing traces of them. For example, in its construction, there are many basalt stone blocks with vertical signs of machine processing. The vertical lines are carefully cut into material that was not native to the pyramid's surroundings, immediately raising questions about the tools and methods by which these marks were made. These lines are not random scratches. Their pattern indicates the traces of saws, a much more advanced tool than a bronze chisel of that time. Even the use of such abrasive materials as quartz sand does not answer all questions. Additional examples hint at the use of more high-tech methods. For instance, the remnants of cuts with diameters ranging from the 10 centimeters to 45 centimeters speak for themselves. Not only do they show the precision of the work, but they also demonstrate the very possibility of curvilinear cutting, suggesting the use of giant circular saws. And this directly contradicts the traditional view that the pyramids were built with simple tools and manual labor. In front of the second pyramid, inside the channels running from the pyramid to the Sphinx, many granite remnants can be found. An especially striking discovery is a limestone block containing a channel made of melted granite. One can clearly see the color change from melting. What temperature must it have withstood? All this, along with pieces of scorched granite and limestone, raises intriguing questions about the processes and technology behind the construction of these monumental structures. Observations of the casing stones further complicate our understanding. An extremely tight fit between them suggests a level of craftsmanship and accuracy hard to reconcile with the tools available at the supposed time of the pyramid's construction. All three pyramids are arranged in the same configuration as the stars composing Orion's belt, and the last time their locations fully aligned with the constellation's line was about 10,500 years ago. This is the first convincing evidence that they are at least 10,000 years old, but they may be much older. Then it becomes clear why there is no mention of the pyramids or their creation in any Egyptian written records. These facts challenge the established chronology of Egyptian history and suggest that the Great Pyramid and its neighbors were built by another culture and may have existed long before the dynastic Egyptian civilization. Most people think that the pyramids of Giza are simply three large pyramids. However, the complex is filled with numerous smaller structures, including many small pyramids that still retain their original casing. Inside, there is an extensive network of shafts and tunnels, for example, those found in the Osiris shaft, evidence that a vast underground complex lies beneath Giza. The plateau, at a depth of 35 meters below the surface of the Osiris shaft, leads to a chamber named the Tomb of Osiris. In the center of the chamber, surrounded by an artificially made channel of water, stands a granite sarcophagus. A natural question arises: how did they provide a stable water source to fill this channel? And how did they maintain the water level? The only plausible explanation for this feat is the existence of an advanced subterranean hydraulic system of chambers and tunnels specifically designed to hold and direct water from a natural source into the shaft. The solid bedrock in the area rules out the likelihood of accidental leaks, further supporting the theory that water was delivered through a specially built hidden conduit. All known details point to a monumental underground engineering project in Giza that was unparalleled at its time. The true purpose of this structure remains a mystery. There are no available clues, no written materials, nor hints in the structure itself. There are no stairways or any other way to descend. How did they manage to place massive granite sarcophagi, each weighing up to 40 tons, inside the structure? Furthermore, why was it necessary to position huge granite boxes underground instead of carving them directly out of the bedrock? This implies that all the objects and the materials they were made from were assigned a particular function. Among others, there was one sarcophagus made not out of granite, but from an unusual material unknown to Egyptology. Such a mineral was never used anywhere else, and there is no other known object like it in the history of ancient Egypt. Aside from the fact that this material cannot be found anywhere in Africa, someone created and transported this massive 40-ton sarcophagus over great distances, possibly across the entire Mediterranean. Advanced dating methods have shown that the Osiris shaft must be at least 5,000 years old, and if we push the timeline back to the pre-dynastic periods of ancient Egypt, we should pay close attention to the Serapeum in Saqqara. It served as the ancient Egyptian necropolis for burying the sacred bulls of the Apis cult in Memphis. The complex is located near Cairo and is famous for its collection of enormous granite boxes, presumably sarcophagi. The boxes, made with astonishing precision, have sparked considerable debate. It is obvious that they were created with extraordinary craftsmanship that suggests the use of advanced technologies far surpassing what is traditionally attributed to the ancient Egyptians. Each box in the Serapeum at Saqqara is hewn from a single block of granite, known for its extreme hardness. The sarcophagi are enormous. Together with the lid and the base, some of them weigh up to 70 tons, which means that the blocks from which they were cut weighed about 200 tons. The accuracy with which they were made is striking. The angles are perfectly perpendicular, and the flat surfaces are exquisitely smooth. How could such a level of precision be achieved without using high-tech processing methods and specialized equipment? The progress achieved several millennia ago leads us to suppose that our commonly accepted knowledge differs significantly from the actual reality of that era. It follows that the ancient Egyptians, or those who constructed all these structures, had access to advanced technologies, possibly lost over time. One of the most amazing aspects of these boxes is their interior surfaces, which are as precisely measured and smooth as the exterior. Achieving such perfect polishing inside a stone box, especially with the primitive tools commonly attributed to that period, seems absolutely impossible. The walls of the boxes have uniform thickness, implying the use of sophisticated measuring and cutting equipment. Such uniformity and precision in stonework is extremely rare among other ancient Egyptian artifacts. The question arises about the technology and methods that were applied in this particular construction. Clearly, the process of hollowing out these massive granite blocks would have required advanced, powerful equipment, and the usual copper tools of the ancient Egyptians were unsuitable for working such hard material, let alone for achieving technical accuracy. This mismatch led to the speculation that the builders of the Serapeum possessed advanced technological knowledge and equipment using high-speed drills, diamond-cutting tools, or other complex machines. Another aspect intriguing researchers is the intended function of these boxes. Traditionally, they were regarded as sarcophagi for burying sacred bulls. But soon, because of the intricate and precise construction of each box, doubts arose about that purpose. For such a primitive task, the design seems overly complex. Theorists suggest that the real reasons for using the boxes required precise measurements and smooth surfaces, perhaps connected with some form of energy manipulation or intended for a scientific process unknown to modern scholars of today. Furthermore, the granite boxes have special acoustic properties. Another point, as already mentioned, is that transporting and placing such massive cargo is equally astonishing. The underground tunnels are narrow and winding, making the movement of such large objects a logistical challenge. One more question is that there are no traces of soot from torches on the walls of the Serapeum. What kind of lighting did they use in the subterranean areas, even if only to position the numerous boxes each in its own slot? The main archaeological theory attributes the precision and craftsmanship of the granite boxes to the skills and perseverance of ancient artisans who refined their stoneworking methods over generations. However, critics of this theory claim that there is no direct archaeological evidence revealing machinery or tools advanced enough to create these boxes. Moreover, tools alone would not suffice. In ancient times, producing items of this kind would have required a deep understanding of engineering and geometry. Notably, the scale and precision of the boxes in the Serapeum at Saqqara were never replicated anywhere else among the discoveries in tombs or other granite quarries. Nummer 9. Let us return to the Great Pyramid in Giza. According to measurements, it is the most precisely oriented structure that exists, and it is aligned strictly to the north with an error margin of only 0.36 hundredths of a degree. The position of the North Pole shifts over time, and in its own era, the pyramid was aligned to it with perfect accuracy. Even more incredible is that the Great Pyramid is located at the center of the Earth's landmass. The east-west parallel and the north-south meridian passing through the majority of the world's land intersect in only two places on Earth. One is in the ocean, and the other is where the Great Pyramid stands. How was this alignment achieved without a compass, which, let us remember, was invented only many centuries later? Clearly, such precision suggests advanced knowledge of astronomy and possibly a practice of star observations. The pyramid's builders possessed detailed knowledge of solstices and equinoxes because on the day of the spring equinox, the sun stands directly over the Great Pyramid, and at those rare moments, the pyramid casts no shadow. Another interesting feature is the acoustic quality of the room inside the pyramid, especially noticeable in the burial chamber. It is constructed of massive granite blocks, known for their density and capacity to reflect sound. Sounds inside this space resonate, creating a powerful reverberation effect. This resonance not only amplifies the sound, but prolongs it longer than one would expect. Take a look at demonstrations from a video by expert Brian Furster, where he explores the chamber with a specialist in acoustic resonance. The sound lingers in the air much longer than expected. Leading researchers propose that the pyramid's architects deliberately designed these acoustic properties in the chamber's dimensions and materials to achieve a specific resonant frequency. This points not only to a strong knowledge base in the physics of sound, but also to a practical significance of acoustics in the pyramid's design. In the 1960s, a researcher named Edward Kunkel proposed in his book Pharaoh's Pump that the Great Pyramid functioned like a hydraulic pump, pushing water upward through its structure and out through small shafts by changing the air pressure. The theory shook the Egyptology world. The author claimed that the passageways and chambers inside and beneath the pyramid were the channels and reservoirs of a giant pump used to direct water into the desert for irrigation. According to him, the pyramid contained two pumps, an underground and an above-ground one, located in the middle and upper chambers. Together, they would create two flows of water exiting the pyramid through shafts on the northern and southern sides. Unsurprisingly, Kunkel's work elicited great skepticism, not only from Egyptologists who completely dismissed the theory, but from engineers who pointed out that such a construction would require creating a vacuum, a series of valves, combustible fuel, as well as a combustion chamber. Nevertheless, scholars did study his work more carefully so as not to reject the hypothesis unfoundedly. Some engineers noted that a piston pump could make sense. It is a simple device that has been used for centuries to move water from a reservoir using two moving parts. And scientists picked up on the idea that the Great Pyramid might have been fed by water from the Western Nile and a nearby lake, which were at a higher level and could have served as ideal sources for a gravitational water supply to the Giza plateau. After all, it was not always a desert there. There is a version that a retaining wall once surrounded the pyramid complex and might have served as an embankment for a local reservoir. As discussion progressed, more knowledgeable experts began to consider that the Great Pyramid really could have been a gigantic water pump. A simple calculation from the field of economics gives us strong reason to reflect. The Great Pyramid consists of more than 2 million blocks, each weighing from 25 to 80 tons. If workers moved and placed 12 blocks per hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it would take about 20 years to build the structure. Adjusted to the modern equivalent in dollars, the pyramid would have cost more than $5 billion. Why go to all that trouble and expense merely for a tomb? Admittedly, the Egyptian pharaohs had more freedom of action than modern leaders elected by democracy. But they were not entirely free of financial and economic realities. Would it not be more rational to undertake such a project for a higher return on investment? For example, a water pump that would allow land irrigation to feed the population. Here, we must step back to reach the core idea. If the Great Pyramid really was a massive water pump, it must have pumped water to specific points. One could connect this action to the mysterious Great Pit in Zayat el-Aryan, which many consider an unfinished pyramid. What if it actually was a reservoir for water that was pumped up from below? The discovery of that granite block led to subsequent findings of more of them, and finally, to the discovery of a huge 30-ton block of pink granite, which served as the base of some kind of paving. This caused the Egyptologist Alessandro Barsanti to believe that he had discovered the entrance to the underworld, possibly filled with untold treasures or significant historical artifacts. One of the most remarkable finds in Zayat el-Aryan was a large oval vat made of pink granite, polished like a mirror. The vat's side walls were marked by a black stripe, possibly residue of some liquid, pointing to a unique and unknown process in its use. Perhaps it once held something of great significance, since a special structure was built to protect the vat's body. Who knows if this process was related to producing or storing energy, but it demonstrated its effectiveness and revealed the hidden aspects of the entire structure. In the year 1905, during excavations by Barsanti's team, a fierce storm struck Egypt, and torrential rain filled the pit with more than 3 meters of water. Incredibly, a few hours after the storm, the water level in the pit abruptly fell. Barsanti became convinced that the water was flowing into hidden underground chambers, which he intended to locate. This was no easy job. Massive blocks were held together by a cement-like mortar and fitted in a tight pattern. It was the most difficult project the team had ever undertaken, but for Barsanti, the intense labor only reinforced his point of view. Whoever took the extraordinary trouble to construct the building made the floor blocks immovable. they had to be hiding something of the utmost importance. Unfortunately, the work was left unfinished. Once more, Barsanti ran out of funds, and before he could solve the mystery, he had to halt excavations. Suddenly, the First World War began, completely cutting off access to Egypt. And in the year 1917, at the age of 59 years, Barsanti passed away unexpectedly. And instead of continuing his work, Egyptologists simply abandoned the excavation, leaving the secret unsolved. When interest in Zoyet El Aryan resurfaced, the Egyptian government in the 1960s restricted access to the territory, only adding to the intrigue. Now there is a military base there, and no one can enter the restricted site. Hence, scholars will have to postpone definitive proof of the architectural significance of the Great Pit of Zoyet El Aryan and its proximity to the Great Pyramid. We have only managed to form the hypothesis that both structures in ancient Egypt served as part of an advanced technological system for generating and distributing energy. In reality, its purpose might have extended far beyond simply pumping water for irrigation. In 1999, a marine engineer named John Cadman was browsing a used bookstore when he came upon an old, dusty copy of an unusual book, Kunkel's Pharaoh's Pump. As a hydraulics expert, Cadman was intrigued. He bought it and read it more carefully. He quickly realized the idea was not at all absurd. In the end, he discovered something that completely captivated him. The subterranean chamber of the Great Pyramid looked very much like the layout of a plunger pump. Further investigation of photographs revealed the underground chamber bore clear signs of water damage, especially on the ceiling, indicating cavitation caused by gas bubbles in water due to violent agitation. Obvious signs of damage from the striking compressive wave were visible as well. In other words, the subterranean chamber could not only have functioned as a water pump, it quite literally appeared to have been doing exactly that. Using his many years of experience in hydraulics, Cadman built his own scale model of the pyramid and the underground chamber to test whether it would indeed operate as a water pump. He used the nearest river as a reservoir, but unfortunately, the model leaked, cracked, and did not pump water as he had hoped. Cadman did not give up so easily. He built another model, then another, with the same disappointing results. On his fourth attempt, he did everything correctly, and to the great joy of the engineer, the pump worked. Thus, he proved beyond any doubt that the Great Pyramid could function as a giant water pump. And undoubtedly, the creators of the Great Pyramid's underground chamber knew exactly what they were doing. After Cadman's breakthrough, no one questioned that the water pump of the Great Pyramid was no fantasy, and as he continued his research, he arrived at even more astonishing conclusions. Cadman built a new, larger model and encased it in concrete to simulate the effect of a pump operating underground. He placed it in a seasonal stream with a pond serving as a reservoir. When the pump began to operate, Cadman immediately noticed something astonishing. Sealed in concrete, the pump created a vertical compression wave, similar to the repeated rhythmic beating of a heart. One could feel the sound through the ground at about 6 meters away and hear it at more than 30 meters. Cadman realized that his experiment had gone well beyond a simple water pump because of the powerful waves it generated, and this changed everything. He then renamed the device a pulse generator. If the subterranean chamber of the Great Pyramid generated pulsing waves, they would travel through the upper granite chambers and, reflected by the granite, create ionization in the atmosphere, effectively forming an electric field. In simpler terms, the pulses from the underground pump, in combination with the pyramid's granite, could produce electricity. So it turned out Cadman had proven that the ancient Egyptians used electricity. But we should add that the idea of an electrical generator did not begin with John Cadman. In fact, it first emerged around the turn of the 20th century in the work of the famous inventor Nikola Tesla. You may be aware of many of his achievements, yet not of his fascination with ancient Egypt, specifically with the pyramids, which he studied in detail and wrote about in his notes. In the year 1905, Tesla planned to patent a design entitled The Art of Transmitting Electrical Energy Through the Natural Medium, which included the construction of Tesla's electromagnetic pyramid. Combining his knowledge of ancient Egypt with his brilliant mind, Tesla aimed to use a gigantic pyramidal structure to project energy into the sky, where it could then be received by individual receptors across the globe. This 57-meter-tall structure, known as the Wardenclyffe Tower, was capped by a 55-ton dome made of conductive metal. Sadly, before he could conclusively prove that his model could generate energy, the same misfortune befell him that had struck Barsanti. His funding ran out, and the project was abandoned. Although Tesla's work on electromagnetic pyramids disappeared, his experiments prompted many to look at the Great Pyramid with fresh eyes. People even re-evaluated its original exterior. It was covered with white limestone blocks known as tura, which is famed for its unparalleled insulating properties, whereas the tunnels and chambers inside it were lined with granite, an excellent electrical conductor. Moreover, it is known that the Great Pyramid was originally topped with a capstone made of gold, which is among the most conductive materials on Earth. Similarly, Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower was topped with a 55-ton metal sphere. If the Great Pyramid had been designed to generate electricity, its builders could hardly have come up with a more optimal plan. Surely they did not stumble upon that perfect design by accident. New details of this puzzle emerged in 1993 with the discovery of a mysterious chamber that had remained hidden and inaccessible for thousands of years. Apparently, it was deliberately designed by the pyramid's builders so that its secret would not be revealed. It came to be called the Queen's Chamber, and it was finally investigated only in the year 2011 using a small remote camera. Naturally, something very strange was found. Embedded in the walls were channels of carefully fabricated copper wiring, and more importantly, on the floor there were painted instructions in the form of symbols that appeared to show a precise wiring diagram. If you run an electric current through a copper wire, it will create a short-range magnetic field on a second coil. And in a windowless space, the forces transmitted from one coil to the other could produce a higher potential on one wall, transmitting energy to the lower potential. Thus, in the enclosed area of the so-called Queen's Chamber, electromagnetic energy was released. These promising clues were studied by Christopher Dunn, a mechanical engineer who worked for more than 50 years at the highest levels of aerospace manufacturing. In the 1970s, Dunn became intrigued by the mysteries of the Great Pyramid of Giza. While still working in the aerospace industry, he pursued independent research on the Great Pyramid from an engineering perspective. Little by little, he became convinced that there was more to the pyramid than conventional thinking allowed. Given the enormous investment of resources and the extraordinary precision of its execution, it had the hallmarks of a sophisticated machine that extracted energy from the earth. For more than 20 years, Christopher Dunn researched and became a recognized authority, publishing dozens of articles and appearing on television as an expert. In simple terms, vibrational resonance converted the Earth's seismic energy into electromagnetic waves. In 1998, 1 year before John Cadman's landmark experiments proving the electrical nature of the Great Pyramid, Dunn finally published his seminal work, The Giza Power Plant, a book that thoroughly described a system by which the Great Pyramid drew seismic energy from the Earth, producing electricity in the King's Chamber by means of hydrogen generated by a chemical reaction in the Queen's Chamber. Dunn's work was so groundbreaking that researchers worldwide were inspired by his example. In more than 2 decades since, investigations have advanced and grown, each time becoming more surprising. Conventional science also began taking seriously the idea of the Great Pyramid as an ancient electrical generator. In 2018, a study in a respected journal of applied physics examined the Great Pyramid's response to radio waves. The conclusion stated that the pyramid actually concentrates electromagnetic energy in its internal chambers, corroborating the work of Cadman and the ideas of Tesla. Then, in 2019, a new book entitled The Giza Industrial Complex was published, building upon Dunn's research. Its main idea stated that the entire Giza plateau functioned as an energy generation system. According to the authors, the structures around and beneath the plateau were designed to activate a complex process of splitting water, which would allow hydrogen to be used as a fuel source. They presented persuasive evidence that the Great Pyramid was a gigantic water processing plant for creating electrified water, showing just how far the concept of the Great Pyramid as an electrical power generator has come. Rather than being ridiculed, the book and its theory were not dismissed outright, and instead of meeting mockery, the work earned a prestigious New York award. Now, more than ever, mainstream science considers the idea that the Great Pyramid was constructed as a power generator. Reflecting on the grandeur of Egypt's ancient structures and their complex technologies, the scholarly community finds compelling reason to think these marvels are not merely the achievements of dynastic Egyptians, as we have long presumed, but rather that they were the remnants of buildings created by a much more highly developed ancient civilization that existed even earlier than recorded history. Could this civilization have passed along a wealth of knowledge and technological skill, forming the foundation on which the later Egyptians thrived for millennia? We might reconsider our conventional beliefs, acknowledging that the pyramids were not experiments of an emerging civilization, but instead the inheritance of advanced predecessors whose insights and achievements were so monumental that they influenced generations long after vanishing. This theory does not diminish the accomplishments of the dynastic Egyptians. Rather, it underscores the continuity of human progress and the potential for each subsequent civilization to build on the legacy of its predecessors. What do you think? Would you agree with the arguments and evidence that the ancient Egyptians were merely the next users of a rich and elaborate inheritance, which they adapted and preserved in the form we now call the history of the ancient world? And now we travel to what is now China to utterly astonish you, for the Egyptian pyramids pale in comparison to what scientists have recently uncovered in China. The Yangshan Quarry on the outskirts of Nanjing in China is a treasure trove of archaeological anomalies that challenge our understanding of ancient engineering. The centerpiece of this mystery is a colossal megalithic block weighing about 16,000 tons, making it the largest known stone ever cut by human hands. To appreciate its magnitude, simply imagine that it is 13 times heavier than the largest known megalithic block in Baalbek, Lebanon, which weighs 1,200 tons. Even with modern capabilities, manipulations such as cutting, extracting, and transporting a stone of this size seem an insurmountable task, regardless of the cranes and heavy machinery at our disposal. The question remains, how did the people who lived long before us accomplish this? Interestingly, that massive stone block in the Yangshan Quarry was not the only one. Millions of tons of rock have already been removed from the site, leaving only towering, flat walls. This proves that transportation technology existed. But that is not the only enigma. What were the methods for cutting and shaping such a gigantic stone? At the bottom of the block, enormous square holes are visible, likely carved for lifting and disassembly. The precision of these markings, together with the smooth surfaces, point to a level far beyond what we understand of ancient civilizations. The presence of straight and precise grooves alongside the enormous size of the block implies a stoneworking mastery unattainable for any known ancient civilization of that era. Moreover, erosion and weathering indicate an extremely ancient age for the block, likely far older than 8,000 years, which are commonly attributed to it. Once, the entire area served as some kind of complex, as there are other massive structures there. On one of them, we see perfect square cavities carved into the rock. Such work would have been impossible with simple bronze tools. The precision of 90-degree angles and the intricate removal of material from these blocks confound modern experts. And the most shocking feature of the structures is the gigantic protrusions. Ancient megalithic monuments with similar characteristic protrusions are found in different parts of the world. Does this mean that the knowledge and techniques of prehistoric builders were universal? In regions of Peru, such as Cusco, the ancient Inca capital, there are many megalithic stones with similar protrusions. On the Giza plateau in Egypt, where the famous pyramids stand, there are also megalithic blocks with protrusions, notably on Menkaur's pyramid. Historians believe these protrusions were used for lifting and placing the stones, serving as anchor points for ropes. However, given the enormous size of the blocks in Yangshan, it is evident that the purpose of these protrusions was something else. Consider this. Giant stone blocks are found in various parts of the world, and all these projects were left unfinished. Why were they abandoned in the midst of quarrying and then remained untouched for thousands of years? We have already mentioned and detailed the massive stone blocks in Baalbek, the ancient city in Lebanon. The trilithon consists of 3 massive stones that form part of the podium of the Temple of Jupiter, and each of them weighs about 800 tons. The true age of this giant megalithic platform remains a mystery even to archaeologists, although many believe it to be at least 9,000 years old. The ancient Phoenicians, Greeks, and Romans later built their structures and temples upon this massive foundation, but nothing in their architecture compares to the scale and engineering mastery of the stones of Baalbek. These colossal blocks were cut and positioned with astonishing precision and fit together seamlessly. Nearby, in an adjacent quarry, lies another stone block known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. For unknown reasons, this stone was also abandoned. Curiously, tool marks identical to those seen on the massive stones of Baalbek appear in the Yangshan Quarry in China. In the ancient city of Petra in Jordan, traces of similar tool marks have also been found. Petra is dated to 7,000 years before the Common Era, and its sedimentary rocks exhibit grooves almost identical to those in Yangshan, despite the differences in the rock types. Comparisons with modern equipment reveal a striking similarity in the grooves. They are typically left by mining machinery. Does this mean that such large-scale technology and advanced engineering knowledge were possessed by ancient civilizations? More abandoned quarries can be found in Aswan, Egypt, where the famous 40-meter-long piece of granite weighing about 1,170 tons lies. The surface of this massive granite slab is decorated with smooth areas. Before us stands evidence that an obelisk was hewn from the solid rock. Another giant unfinished block can be found in the Minya Quarry in Egypt, also known as the Tura Quarry. The block in Minya remains in place, partially cut from the limestone, and its position indicates that the work was not abandoned. The obelisk simply could not be extracted and transported. What caused the sudden cessation of work at these sites? Perhaps a catastrophic event abruptly halted these monumental projects, for this incompleteness is characteristic of all megaliths, giving rise to the theory of a global ancient cataclysm among experts. In 1992, in a small farming village in Zhejiang province in eastern China, a remarkable discovery was made. Hidden beneath the picturesque banks of the Ku River lay a stunning secret. A mountain, not particularly grand, contained numerous ponds, many of which were perfectly rectangular, hinting at their unusual origin. These ponds were always full, and local farmers regularly used them. The water in the mysterious pits never ran dry. They became known as the bottomless ponds, and for many years, the locals were steeped in curiosity. No recollections about them existed even among the village elders. The name proved fitting, as their depths could not be measured. Generations attempted to gauge their depth using long bamboo poles, but all efforts were in vain, for no one ever felt the bottom. The only clue was the size of the fish living within them. In the summer of 1992, the mystery was slightly unveiled when a villager caught a gigantic fish weighing about 13 kilograms in one of these supposedly modest pools. This catch was significant not only for its size, but also for the questions it raised regarding the true nature of the pond's depths, where such a large fish could grow and thrive. The villager who caught the remarkable fish was already known in the community for his curiosity and previous attempts to explore the pond depths. Spurred on by this discovery, he resolved to solve the mystery of the bottomless ponds once and for all. To this end, he needed to do something radical: drain the pond. Convinced of the necessity, he persuaded 3 fellow villagers to join the investigation, acquired a water pump, and embarked on an ambitious project that would challenge ancestral myths. On the 9th of June 1992, they began their labor and worked in shifts day and night, anticipating the revelation. After 5 days of continuous pumping, the water level receded enough to reveal the first clue that this was no ordinary pond. To their astonishment, as the water withdrew, a stone staircase appeared, leading into the depths. This first discovery was a moment of revelation and extraordinary surprise. Realizing the significance of their find, the villagers intensified their efforts and acquired 4 additional water pumps, greatly increasing their efficiency. For 17 days, they persisted in their unrelenting efforts, observing as the water level slowly fell and the full scale of their discovery was unveiled. What they uncovered was nothing less than a monumental underground structure. When the last remnants of water had gone, they stood before the entrance to a vast, artificial cavern. The pond, that had long intrigued and sustained their community, was in fact a skylight or roof entrance to a massive ancient underground complex. This discovery fundamentally altered the villagers' perception of their region, its significance, and its history. The Longyu caves, as they came to be called, represented a marvel of ancient engineering and craftsmanship. 24 caves in total, 14 of which had already collapsed. The ones that remained intact exhibited perfectly level floors and ceilings sloped precisely at a 45-degree angle. Although the caves were not interconnected, their floors were aligned at the same elevation, and the distance between adjacent chambers was only 50 centimeters. How could such precision be achieved? The caves were hewn into solid rock, extending deep underground, and their spaces were immense. The accuracy of the carving, the smoothness of the walls, and the sheer scale of the excavations implied an organizational and technical sophistication far beyond what is recorded in our knowledge of ancient Chinese history. The cave design was both complex and functional, featuring channels and reservoirs that indicated an understanding of hydraulics and water management. Despite their ancient origin, the caves have withstood the test of time, remaining structurally sound and largely free of debris or sediment. This only deepened the mystery. What was their purpose, and who could have built such an extensive structure? Another puzzle was how these vast structures were illuminated. There is no trace of smoke on the walls or ceilings. How, then, did they light the caves during construction? Each cave covers, on average, 1,000 square meters and rises to a height equivalent to a 10-story building. Altogether, the caves occupy an area equal to 3.5 city blocks. Experts estimate that without advanced technology, carving them would have taken centuries, not to mention the additional time needed for the intricate decorative work. Numerous ornamental elements are carved into the walls. Such a monumental endeavor suggests sponsorship on the scale of an empire, yet notably, there is no record of these caves in history. Despite China's long tradition of meticulous record-keeping, no ancient texts mention their construction. The markings on their walls are another captivating aspect. They are especially uniform and consistent, all oriented at a 60-degree angle. This led researchers to believe they were made using advanced technology, as the marks are strikingly similar to those left by modern machinery, for example, drilling equipment. The similarity is almost identical in nature, raising the provocative question: did the creators of these caves possess technologies akin to those we have today? Another dilemma arises. Calculations show that building the Longyu caves would have required the removal of millions of cubic meters of rock. Given the average density of sandstone, which is 3 tons per cubic meter, the total weight of excavated material would easily have reached millions of tons. It had to have been transported somewhere. Yet when archaeologists surveyed the surrounding area, they found no remnants of excavated material. Typically, mining sites leave large spoil heaps, but in the vicinity of the caves, there are no signs of the piles of stone that such extensive quarrying would inevitably produce. Most confounding of all is the lack of any evidence of construction. No records of the people who could have built these caves, no traces of villages nearby, no cemeteries, no work zones. These 24 caves are not the only structures in the world that bear traces of advanced technologies. In fact, thousands of similar caves are scattered across China. If we travel 100 miles to the north, we will find the Huashan Grottos. Located near the Yellow River, these grottos consist of 36 caves, each a masterpiece of sophistication and precision that echoes the characteristics of the Longyu caves. The grottos are an architectural marvel with their spacious halls, intricate passageways, and detailed carvings. As with the Longyu excavations, the scale of the Huashan project is staggering. Yet strangely, no debris from the extracted stone has ever been found. Estimates of the total volume of rock removed to form the Huashan grottos run into tens of thousands of cubic meters, requiring a well-organized workforce and a deep understanding of engineering principles. Without advanced technology, such an undertaking would have taken centuries. And again, there are no historical records or documents that shed light on the construction of these grottos, their purpose, or the civilization that created them. Much of these caves remain unexplored to this day. Another site where we can observe strange traces of drilling machinery is the Hejin urban fortress. Perched atop a lofty mountain slope, this mysterious stronghold is ingeniously concealed by deep gorges, making it nearly invisible to the untrained eye. Even the local residents have scant knowledge of its historical origins. Only thanks to the guidance of an 80-year-old local did the significance and layout of the fortress become known. His familiarity with the terrain played a crucial role in discovering the paths leading to this historic site. Inside the Hejin fortress, one encounters something akin to an ancient ark. At one time, cave dwellings were situated on the fortress's flanks. Over time, they have decayed, leaving only the plateau and the gates behind. The initial theory proposed by historians was that primitive farmers, lacking any means of defense, built the fortress as a refuge from bandits. This theory seems unconvincing even with regard to the individual architectural features of the fortress, in particular the massive gateway standing 9 meters high, visible from a great distance. The scale and complexity of the construction appear to contradict the idea that it was simply a shelter. As with the other caves we have discussed, the fortress's structure was not formed by natural processes, but was painstakingly carved into the rock using the same technology evident elsewhere. Yet another enigmatic place is the Guyaju Caves, the largest rock dwellings in China. An extensive cave complex of 117 caves and 350 rooms was discovered in 1984. It stretches 50 miles northwest of Beijing, covering an area of 100,000 square meters as a monumental testament to ancient ingenuity and skill. The Guyaju caves are carved from solid granite, implying advanced technical skills and the tremendous labor of their creators. On the surface of the granite, we again see the same marks that are present on other megalithic structures. The mystery deepens with the absence of archaeological evidence or historical records mentioning this site. No dates, no artifacts, no legends underpin this architectural wonder. The cave chambers, resembling a honeycomb, vary in design from square and rectangular to circular shapes, with one or multiple rooms at different levels. This style is reminiscent of cave dwellings found in other regions such as Turkey, Italy, and Spain. Everything inside is carved from stone: doorways, windows, ovens, double beds, chimneys, lamp niches, and storage compartments. The interior illustrates a high standard of living. The complex featured stone staircases, ladders, and bridges, and grooves carved into the roofs for collecting rainwater. Architectural design also includes advanced drainage systems, indicating knowledge of ecological management and sustainable living. The compact layout resembles modern, multi-story buildings, and the entire cave complex represents a clustered development. Of particular note is the largest structure in the complex, Guantanzi, or the Golden Temple. It consists of 8 rooms on 2 floors and contains finely sculpted stone columns, a large central stone bed, and stone furniture. It may have served as a community leader's residence or a place of worship. Despite more than 30 years of preservation and study since its discovery, the origin, purpose, and ultimate fate of the inhabitants of the Guyaju caves remain a mystery. Judging by all these complex mega-projects, one might assume that some lost civilization once lived in China thousands of years ago, yet surely some clues must have remained. In 1986, in the city of Guanghan, construction workers stumbled upon an archaeological marvel that could well have been remnants of this mysterious culture. The discovery of 2 sacrificial pits marked a significant breakthrough in the study of ancient Chinese history. They contained hundreds of artifacts, bronze and gold masks, statues, figurines, and exquisite items made from marble and jade. Historians dated the finds to a period from 3,000 to 5,000 years ago, placing them at the dawn of civilization, when the Sumerian and Egyptian cultures, among the first advanced societies on Earth, were flourishing. This lost civilization was named Sanxingdui, meaning 3-star mounds on ruins. In total, 13,000 artifacts were unearthed, more than 1,200 bronze items, 543 gold artifacts, and 565 jade pieces. Among the highlights is a bronze box with a lid shaped like a turtle, handles in the form of dragon heads, and bronze strips. Other key finds include a bronze sacrificial altar, a mask, and a bronze statue with a human head and a serpent's body. Among the largest objects is a gigantic bronze mask measuring 1.5 meters wide and 75 centimeters high, and a bronze statue standing 2.5 meters tall. In the center of each of the figure's hands are cylindrical holes, suggesting it once held something. All the bronze heads discovered among the relics are astonishing, featuring enormous eyes and ears. Many experts believe this civilization did not belong to Chinese culture at all, as nothing remotely similar had ever been created there. These mysterious objects turned out to be utterly unique, exemplifying refined artistry. The masks and statues are notable not only for their unconventional facial features, but also for their complexity. Creating such works would have required advanced metallurgical skills, which is quite remarkable for a civilization living at least 5,000 years ago. However, many of the items were found damaged and bearing burn marks. Were they intentionally damaged, then burned and buried? Or was the civilization itself destroyed by a catastrophic event, leaving these objects as survivors? Whoever the creators of these artifacts were, their sudden disappearance remains one of the greatest historical mysteries. But the greatest mystery of all lies with the pyramids that can be found throughout China, hidden for centuries and relatively unknown to the world. These ancient structures cover the central plains and deserts of China, predominantly in Shanxi province. Yet the Chinese government has imposed strict prohibitions on excavations and even on visiting these ancient structures. Local farmers living nearby are required to plant trees on the pyramids to conceal them from view. More than 200 discovered pyramids have scientists striving to unravel their true purpose and origin. Moreover, the government obstructs any research. The first recorded mention of the pyramids in the West dates to the year 1912, but it was only in the mid-20th century that these structures attracted significant attention. During World War II, an American pilot named James Gaussman flew over the region and photographed the Chinese pyramids. However, only with the advent of satellite imagery have we been able to understand their true scale and number. Similar to pyramids elsewhere on Earth, the Chinese pyramids are precisely oriented, their angles perfectly aligned with the cardinal directions. From an astronomical standpoint, they are slightly offset relative to the constellation Gemini, arranged so that they form a line during the spring equinox. A small deviation of 14 degrees can be explained by Earth's axial precession, since the planet's axis wobbles and the points of the spring and autumn equinoxes gradually shift, completing a full cycle approximately every 25,700 years. This suggests the pyramids may be tens of thousands of years old. Another incredible alignment with celestial bodies can be found when comparing the layout of the pyramids of Teotihuacan in Mexico with the Giza complex in Egypt and the pyramid ensemble in Xi'an, China. All three sites are structured almost identically and reflect the constellation Orion. How is this possible, given that they are located on different continents separated by thousands of kilometers? Moreover, all three pyramid complexes are positioned almost in a straight line along the same latitude. Is this merely coincidence, or is there more to the story? The colossal Great White Pyramid, located in a valley in Shanxi province, is considered the largest pyramid in the world. It is twice the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza, its height reaching about 300 meters. This implies that its construction would have required no less than 50 million tons of stone. Some researchers link the extensive network of caves we discussed earlier with the enormous pyramids in this region. Since no spoil heaps were found in the quarry area, the material must have been transported elsewhere and used for other purposes. Perhaps it served to build the numerous pyramids across China, particularly the Great White Pyramid. In addition, the giant stones extracted from the Yangshan Quarry could have been useful for this project. Nummer 1. The largest mystical burial site in China, known as the Terracotta Army, is also located right on the edge of a vast pyramid that remains unexcavated. The Terracotta Army was discovered in 1974 by local farmers digging a well. Its scale is astonishing. The army includes more than 8,000 statues of soldiers, chariots, horses, officials, acrobats, strongmen, and musicians, each with unique features and facial expressions. This suggests they were modeled after real people. The figures are life-sized and were originally painted, though much of the paint has flaked off over the centuries. The Terracotta Army was part of a larger necropolis designed to mirror the urban plan of the capital and served to protect the first emperor Qin Shi Huangdi in the afterlife. He was a monumental figure in Chinese history. His conquests unified the country. During his reign, the Great Wall began to be built, and standards for currency and legal systems were introduced. The Terracotta Army, buried more than 2,000 years ago, represents a massive underground mausoleum city that was constructed over several decades by 700,000 workers and craftsmen. It is a 4-layered subterranean city at the center of which lies one of China's greatest enigmas, the Emperor's Mound. It remains unexcavated due to high mercury levels. This structure represents a complex and fascinating engineering puzzle. Archaeologists believe that beneath the mound is a chamber containing the remains of Qin Shi Huangdi, surrounded by a miniature model of the universe. The ceiling of the tomb is said to depict the night sky with pearls as stars, and the ground represents the landscape of China, with flowing mercury symbolizing rivers. Just imagine the secrets that could be discovered inside the very pyramid that is likely thousands of years older than the terracotta army itself. Within the tomb lies an entire lake of mercury, complete with clever mechanical devices that are said to target any uninvited visitor in the grand tradition of Tomb Raider films. There is a whole narrative about how well protected it is, and to this day, it has not been revealed. The mystery surrounding the Chinese pyramids stretches far into the past. Documented references to these structures date back to the early 17th century. Notably, some of the earliest Western descriptions were made by a Jesuit missionary, whose observations survive in various historical reports. However, it was Joseph de Guignes, a renowned French Orientalist and sinologist of the 18th century, who made a significant contribution to the study of this phenomenon. In his 1785 publication, Essay in which we prove that the Chinese are an Egyptian colony, de Guignes presented his provocative theory, positing a direct connection between the Chinese and the ancient Egyptians based largely on the existence of pyramid-like structures in China. He also cited certain cultural and linguistic similarities that suggested a possible historical link between the two civilizations. However, note that the architectural features of these structures resemble not only pyramids in Egypt, but also those in South America. There is an intriguing site called the Guanlin Temple in Henan Province. Although the temple serves as a monument, its architectural characteristics and the age of certain structures within the complex imply a far more ancient origin. It is believed that ancient Chinese used this site as a tomb, in much the same way that ancient Egyptians used their monuments, although they were not the original architects. As we have seen, these megalithic structures were far too advanced for their bronze tools and engineering knowledge. This place is primarily known as the Tomb and Memorial Complex of General Guan Yu, a figure well represented in Chinese folklore and history. The tomb of the general in Jizhu, located in Jilin Province in China, is part of the Koguryo tomb complex. This pyramidal structure is likely to be thousands of years older than the Koguryo kingdom that later used it as a tomb, though they did not build it themselves. The pyramidal form of the general's tomb represents a unique architectural style for East Asia, differing from the more rounded mounds typically found in other parts of China and Korea. Interestingly, this pyramid has a wide base that narrows toward the summit, very similar to the Mesoamerican pyramids built by the Aztecs and the Maya. Such similarities intrigue from a comparative perspective, for historically, it was believed that their builders developed independently on opposite sides of the world. These similarities are not merely superficial, they extend to engineering techniques, orientation relative to the cardinal directions and celestial objects, and the correlation with astronomical events. And undoubtedly, to the multi-tiered construction characteristic of many pyramidal structures around the world. The idea that such architectural and engineering concepts could span continents and cultures suggests a potential global exchange of knowledge or a shared architectural lineage that we have yet to fully uncover and understand. Curiously, similar ancient legends about mythical figures who visited our ancestors and imparted advanced knowledge and technologies exist around the world. In Mesopotamian mythology, the Apkallu were 7 sages sent by the god Enki to teach humanity various arts, the invention of writing, laws, temple construction, and agriculture. In Mesoamerican cultures, especially among the Aztecs and the Toltecs, the god Quetzalcoatl occupies a central place. This feathered serpent taught ancient people metalworking, calendar making, and corn cultivation. In Egyptian mythology, Thoth is described as the deity who gave the Egyptians writing in the form of hieroglyphs, along with many other advanced knowledges, significantly boosting their civilization's development. Graham Hancock, a British writer and journalist, author of more than a dozen books and 2 documentary films, put forward the hypothesis that these beings survived a global cataclysm that destroyed an ancient, advanced civilization. They then spread around the world, bestowing knowledge upon primitive hunter-gatherer societies. Interestingly, Chinese mythology presents a similar figure, the Yellow Emperor Huangdi, revered as the progenitor of Chinese civilization. His contributions to the Chinese cultural treasury are immense, from creating traditional medicine, including acupuncture, to introducing wooden construction techniques, bow and arrow use, bronze coinage, and writing. If one compares the image of the Yellow Emperor to other culture bearers around the world, a pattern emerges whereby these figures are credited with introducing key achievements to their societies. All of this essentially means that the advanced megastructures found throughout China were the creations of a much more ancient civilization. Somehow, it has become lost to time, and no information about it remains in our history textbooks. One of the most contentious discoveries in China is the so-called Baigong pipes, which to this day remain an unresolved mystery of the past 3 decades. In 1996, a research expedition discovered approximately 20 pipes with diameters ranging from 2 to 40 centimeters embedded within rock formations. They formed a complex artificial network and were clearly not natural formations. These enigmatic objects attracted wide media attention but have yet to undergo thorough scientific investigation. Theories about their origin have ranged from suppositions of an ancient water system to an advanced mechanism for draining a lake. Chemical analyses of the pipes revealed a high content of iron oxide, as well as significant amounts of silicon dioxide and calcium oxide. Notably, these artifacts are over 5,000 years old, much older than the first smelting of iron in China. The earliest available information on the Baigong pipes appeared in a Chinese newspaper in June 2002, a report claiming that the discovery could challenge all our understanding of human history. Subsequently, other sensational reports presented the pipes as remnants of technologically advanced structures. During a search for dinosaur fossils near Mount Baigong, a group of American scientists found several caves containing even stranger objects. Among them were 2 rusty iron pipes, about 40 centimeters in diameter. One seemed to run from the mountain summit into a cave, while the other descended from the cave floor. If they were part of some ancient system or mechanism, then an even larger structure must have existed. Of the 3 discovered caves, 2 collapsed, hiding their contents. Later studies in the area uncovered about 12 more pipes with diameters of 2 to 5 centimeters, suggesting an extensive network. Observers noted that the pipes were definitely interconnected and linked by highly developed technology. Around Lake Tosan, approximately 80 meters from Mount Baigong, dozens of pipes ranging in size from a few centimeters to a few millimeters were found, some embedded in the lake bed and others protruding above the surface. Strangely, such a structure never became the subject of intense scientific scrutiny and is rarely mentioned in academic circles. It was hypothesized that the pipes were part of an ancient water management system, possibly linked to a pyramid-like structure that once towered 50 to 60 meters high on the mountain, with triangular shafts and wells radiating from it. The pyramid may have directed water from Lake Tosan through a complex network of pipes. One of the few who conducted serious chemical analysis was Chinese scientist Liu Shaolin. who discovered that the pipes mainly consist of iron, calcium, and silicon oxides, but about 8% of the material remained unidentified. Liu's research suggests that over time, minerals could have replaced organic materials, such as tree roots, in a fossilization-like process. This theory was confirmed in 2003 by atomic spectroscopy studies, which detected organic compounds and growth rings, evidence that the pipes are natural formations, not artifacts of advanced technology. Despite these findings, the mystery deepened when in 2007, the China Seismological Bureau reported significant radioactivity in some of the pipes. A new intrigue emerged. If the pipes are natural, why are they radioactive? The story of the Baigong pipes awaits further scientific study, for current investigations have not answered our questions. But what we do know for certain is that the Yangshan Quarry, with its gigantic stone block, the networks of caves carved using advanced technologies, and the hundreds of pyramids scattered across China are all man-made structures. The sheer number of these megastructures leads us to conclude that indeed a highly developed ancient civilization once existed on the territory of modern China. What that race was remains one of the greatest enigmas. And so, friends, this is how our hour-long episode turned out. If you enjoyed it and wish to see the next installment or something similar, write about it in the comments, leave likes, subscribe to the channel, and right now, write the keyword rocket in the comments. This way, I will know that you watched until the very end. Thank you all very much for watching, and then watch one of the 2 videos that have appeared on your screen.